Woof woof to all the Brigadiers, and welcome to another episode of the Bark Brigade podcast by Dogzilla Magazine.
It is fantastic to be back, and I have to say, listening to that introduction, you have certainly brought the caffeine today.
I had to. Look, usually we're tackling these heavy, sometimes, somber topics. We've done nutrition, we've done behavioral issues, we've done the history of the leash. But today
Feels different.
Today, I feel like we are just allowed to be fans. We get to just enjoy this one.
Fans of what?
Fans of the flop. We are talking about floppy dog ears. And I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're the toughest, most stoic person on the planet. If a golden retriever runs up to you and those ears are doing that slap, slap, slap rhythm against their head, you are going to smile.
You are.
It is a biological imperative. You can't fight it.
It really is. There is something universally disarming about it. It's tactile, it's visual, it's the velvet texture, the way they, frame the face.
Oh, the texture is everything.
It's arguably the defining feature of what we as humans classify as cute.
Right. But here's the thing, and this is why I love this show. I was prepping for this thinking, okay, this is going to be a fluff piece. We're just going to look at pictures of beagles and say, for an hour.
Which we still might do.
We might. But then I opened the dossier you sent over, specifically this source material, The Science and Charm of Floppy Dog Ears. And wow.
It is not a fluff piece.
It is absolutely not. I mean, we are talking about hardcore molecular genetics. We are talking about evolutionary biology, something called domestication syndrome.
Yep.
And we are talking about a pretty intense medical reality that I think most dog owners, myself included, are completely oblivious to.
That is the goal of the deep dive, right? To take something that seems simple on the surface, like a floppy ear, and peel back the layers to see the machinery underneath.
The machinery is complicated.
It is, because the reality is the floppy ear is a biological anomaly. In the grand scheme of nature, it arguably shouldn't exist.
That is a tease if I've ever heard one. It shouldn't exist. So our mission today is to unpack why it does exist, how we accidentally engineered it, and then, crucially, how to keep these things healthy.
Right.
Because apparently they are a bit of a design flaw when it comes to hygiene.
A significant design flaw, yes. But we will get to that.
Okay, let's start with the why. Section 1 of our outline, the genetic blueprint. I think for most people, myself included, we just assume dogs have floppy ears because they're dogs. It's just a dog thing.
It feels fundamental.
It does. But this source mentions a massive study from early 2026 that suggests we didn't actually understand the mechanics of this until, 5 minutes ago.
It is surprisingly recent. I mean, we have known that domestication changes ear shape for a long time. Darwin noticed it.
Darwin noticed everything.
I did. But knowing that something happens is very different from understanding the molecular how. What's the actual switch being flipped?
So what changed in 2026? What was the breakthrough?
Technology and scale. This study didn't just look at a handful of Labradors. They sequenced the genomes of over 3,000 canids.
Canids, so not just dogs.
Exactly, and that's important. They looked at wolves, coyotes, and domestic dogs across the entire spectrum. They wanted to compare the wild blueprint,
The original file,
yes, with the domestic blueprint to see exactly where the typo was, where the code got changed.
A typo in the code. I love that image. And they found it.
They did. After filtering through millions of genetic markers, they zeroed in on a very specific region of the DNA. It's located near a gene called MSRB3.
MSRB3.
Okay, now this is where it gets nuanced, so stick with me. MSRB3 is a gene known to be involved in hearing. If you knock it out completely, you often get deafness.
Which would be bad.
Very bad, a major evolutionary disadvantage. But they found that the mutation wasn't inside the gene itself. The gene was working fine. The change was in the DNA sitting right next to it.
Okay, help me out here. I'm not a geneticist.
Mm-hmm.
If the gene is the thing that does the work, why does the stuff next to it matter?
That's a great question.
The source used this recipe analogy, which I thought was helpful, but can we break that down?
Let's use the recipe analogy, but let's make it more specific. Imagine the MSRB3 gene is a recipe for ear structure. In a wolf, the recipe is very strict. It says, build a stiff cartilage structure, make it stand upright, stop when it is 4 inches high.
Right. Prick ears.
Yeah.
The survival gear, the ones that can pivot and listen.
Exactly. That is the default. That is what nature selects for. Because in the wild, you need to hear a twig snap 300 yards away. It's life or death.
Okay.
But in domestic dogs, the DNA next to the recipe, let's call it the chef's notes in the margin, has been scribbled all over.
So the recipe's the same, But the instructions on how to use it are different, like someone added double the sugar or bake for an extra hour.
Precisely. This is what we call regulatory DNA. It doesn't change the protein being made. It changes how much is made or when it gets made or how fast.
So it's a control panel for the gene.
It's a control panel. The source uses the factory dial analogy, which I think is even better for visualizing the length issue.
I like the dial. Yeah, let's do that.
Picture a factory line producing ear cartilage cells. The MSRB3 gene is the machine making the cells. In a wolf, the dial is set to a moderate 5. It makes enough cells for the ear to stand up, and then it shuts off.
Efficient. Very German engineering.
Very efficient.
Oh.
In a floppy-eared dog, that regulatory DNA, that dial has been turned up, someone came along and cranked it.
To what?
It depends on the dog, but it boosts the gene's activity. The machine is now cranking out cells faster and for a longer period of time.
So you're getting an overproduction of material. It's not a different material, just more of it.
Yes. You are producing so much ear tissue, so much cartilage and skin, that the structural integrity can't support the weight. The cartilage is still there, but there's just too much ear for it to stand up against gravity.
So it flops.
It flops.
That makes so much sense. So it's not that the ear is broken, it's that it's excessive. It's over-engineered.
It is exuberant. And the really fascinating finding in this 2026 study was that they didn't just find one change. It wasn't just a binary switch up or down. They found that different mutations in this regulatory region act like different settings on the dial.
This explains the variety, right? The difference between a beagle and a basset hound.
Exactly. One mutation might turn the dial to a 7. That gives you a beagle. It's floppy, it's cute, but it's manageable. Another mutation might turn the dial all the way to an 11.
Spinal tap.
It goes to 11. And that gives you the bloodhound or the basset, where the ear is literally cascading down the neck.
So a bloodhound is basically a genetic factory where the foreman fell asleep on the make ear button.
Well, essentially, yes. And this is crucial for breeders. This is the practical application of the science.
Right, the so what factor. Why should a breeder care about the MSRB3 gene and its neighbors?
Because genetics is messy. Genes are packed tight on chromosomes. Very often, if you are breeding for a specific look, say, you want a smaller dog, you might be selecting a gene that is physically located right next door to the ear gene.
The package deal. You select for one thing, you get another for free whether you wanted it or not.
Exactly. This is called linkage. By mapping these specific markers for ear length, breeders can now separate the variables. They can test for it.
So they can be more precise.
Infinitely more precise. They can try to keep the cute floppy look without accidentally dragging along a gene that causes, say, joint problems or deafness. It moves breeding from guessing to architecting.
That is incredible. It's like having a map of the wiring instead of just flipping switches in the dark and hoping the house doesn't burn down.
A very apt metaphor.
Okay, so that is the mechanism. That is the biological machine. But there is a bigger, more philosophical question here. Why did the dial get turned up in the first place? You mentioned wolves have upright ears for survival. It's a critical tool. Why on earth would we want a dog with ears that block its own hearing? This leads us to section 2. Domestication syndrome.
This is one of the most compelling stories in all of evolutionary science. It addresses the fundamental question, did humans choose floppy ears?
And the answer is no. Is that what I'm gathering?
The answer is almost certainly no, at least not initially. When our ancestors were sitting around campfires 15,000 or 20,000 years ago trying to tame wolves, they were not worried about aesthetics.
Yeah.
They didn't care about cute. They weren't thinking, oh, that one will look adorable on a calendar.
They cared about not being eaten.
Yeah.
And maybe having a partner to help hunt.
Correct. They were selecting for one thing and one thing only, tameness. They wanted an animal that had a lower flight or fight distance, an animal that wouldn't panic when a human approached and wouldn't attack when it was startled.
So they just picked the chillest wolves and bred them together. You seem less likely to bite my face off. Come over here.
That's basically it. But biology is interconnected. It's a web. You can't just change one thing without causing ripples to spread through the whole system. This is where the famous Russian fox experiment comes in.
I have heard bits and pieces of this, but walk us through it. This was in the 1950s, right? In Siberia.
Yes. Starting in 1959, a Soviet geneticist named Dmitry Belayev, he had this brilliant idea. He wanted to recreate the domestication of the dog in real time, but on an accelerated schedule.
Oh.
He used silver foxes, wild, aggressive animals, effectively. He set up a very strict breeding program.
And the only rule was? Be nice.
Only behavior.
Hmm.
He developed a simple test. He would put a gloved hand into the cage. If the fox attacked the hand, it was out of the breeding program.
Yeah.
If the fox cowered in fear at the back of the cage, it was also out. He only bred the ones that showed curiosity or tolerance, the ones that came forward, maybe sniffed the glove.
The brave but friendly
The
one.
nice ones. He did this generation after generation. And remarkably quickly, within just 10 generations or so, the foxes changed completely.
10 generations isn't very long in evolutionary terms.
It's a blink of an eye. And these foxes started wagging their tails when humans approached. They started whining for attention. They licked the scientists' hands.
They became dogs. They turned into little fox dogs.
Behaviorally, yes. But then the physical changes appeared. And Belayev didn't select for these. He wasn't choosing for looks at all. They just happened.
What kind of changes?
The foxes started getting white patches on their fur, especially on their faces and chests. Their tails started curling up over their backs. Their snouts got shorter, more puppy-like. And, most importantly for us, their ears started to flop.
Wow. So the floppy ear is a side effect. It's not the goal. It's just baggage that comes along with being friendly.
It is a side effect. It is the biological receipt for tameness. And we know why now. It all comes down to a special class of cells called neural crest cells.
This sounds important. This sounds like the missing link between being nice and having floppy ears.
Mhm.
What are neural crest cells?
Think of them as a roving construction crew in the early embryo. These are powerful stem cells that start out near the developing spinal cord, and then they migrate all over the body to build different, very important structures.
Okay, so what's on their to-do list? What are they building?
A lot. And this is the key. They build the adrenal glands, which sit on top of the kidneys, and produce adrenaline, the fight-or-flight hormone.
Okay, that's a direct link to tameness.
A direct link. They also build the pigment cells for the skin and fur. They build parts of the jaws and facial bones. And they build the cartilage of the ear.
I think I see the connection now.
Here.
It's like one contractor is responsible for the foundation, the wiring, and the roof.
It is. So to get a tame animal, you are selecting for low fear. That means you want smaller, less active adrenal glands. You want less adrenaline pumping through the system.
So you dial down the construction crew responsible for building the adrenal glands.
Exactly. You genetically select for a lazy or mild neural crest crew. You're selecting for neural crest cells that don't migrate as far or multiply as much. But if the crew is too tired to build big adrenal glands,
They're also too tired to finish their other jobs properly.
they cut corners.
They cut corners.
They don't put enough pigment in all the right places, so you get white spots. They don't build the jaw out fully, so you get a shorter, more juvenile snout. And they don't lay down enough rigid, strong cartilage in the ear to make it stand up against gravity.
That is mind-blowing. So when I look at a Cocker Spaniel's ears, I'm not just seeing cute. I'm physically seeing the evidence that its adrenal glands are smaller than a wolf's.
You are seeing the mark of friendship. You are seeing the physical evidence that this animal's entire system has been rewired to not fear you, to coexist with you.
That completely changes how I look at my dog. It's
Yeah.
like the flop is a flag of surrender, but in a good way, a cooperative way.
In a symbiotic way. It's a sign that they have entered our world, and in doing so, they've changed physically.
But humans being humans, we didn't just leave it at accidental side effect. Once we saw these floppy ears, we started finding uses for them. We started to shape them.
That's right.
Which brings us to section 3. Form follows function.
Right. Evolution is opportunistic. And humans are even more so. We got these floppy ears by accident, but then we realized, hey, wait a minute, this actually helps with certain jobs. We started selecting for them intentionally.
So we took the dial that nature turned up by accident and we started fine-tuning it for our own purposes.
We did. We became the primary selective pressure.
Let's talk about the scent first.
Yeah.
The bloodhounds, the bassets, because this is the most extreme example. I always thought the long ears were just sad, like they looked mournful. But you're saying they are actually high-tech equipment?
They are absolutely tools. They are as much a piece of hunting equipment as the dog's nose. If you watch a bloodhound track, they put their nose to the ground. When they do that, those massive, heavy ears fall forward.
They curtain the face. It's like they're wearing blinders.
Yes. And as the dog moves, the tips of the ears drag along the ground or sweep just above it. The source compares it to a broom or a feather duster.
A broom. How so?
Like a broom sweeping dust into a dustpan. The ears physically stir up microscopic scent particles, skin cells, sweat, crushed grass, and waft them upward.
Directly toward the nose.
Exactly. They are creating a turbulent cloud of scent right in front of the nostrils. They are actively feeding data into their own supercomputer nose.
That is genius. That is incredible. And the source mentioned something about a cone of silence.
A scent cone. Because the ears are so large and they hang so close to the eyes, they act like blinders on a horse. They block peripheral vision.
So they can't get distracted by a squirrel running by.
Correct. And the heavy leather muffles ambient sound. It dampens the noise of the world.
So it's sensory deprivation for everything except smell.
Focused sensory deprivation. It blocks the eyes, blocks the ears, and forces the brain to process only one input. Smell. It turns the dog into a nose with legs.
That is incredible design.
Hmm.
What about the water dogs, the labs, the Chesapeakes, the poodles? Their ears aren't dragging on the ground.
No, theirs are different. They are usually shorter, lighter, and sit closer to the head. For them, the function is a seal, a gasket.
A gasket.
If you are a Labrador Retriever, your job is to dive into freezing cold water to get a duck. You do not want that icy water rushing deep into your ear canal.
That would cause an infection, right? Or just be really unpleasant.
It causes disorientation, hypothermia, and infection. The drop ear acts like a lid. It clamps down when they hit the water, protecting the inner ear from the sudden influx of water and debris. It keeps the delicate machinery safe.
And the spaniels, the ones flushing birds in the brush.
Protection from trauma. If you are a Springer Spaniel or a Cocker Spaniel, your job is to run headfirst into a briar patch to flush birds.
Right.
You don't want an upright, open ear acting like a funnel for thorns and sharp sticks. A long, silky, feathered ear flap protects the delicate canal from getting punctured or filled with burrs.
So we took this accidental tameness trait and we specialized it. We bred the factory dial to different settings based on the job description. Longer for hounds, tighter for retrievers.
Exactly. We took over from nature and became the sculptors. And in some cases, we just bred for looks.
Like the Cavalier King Charles Spaniel.
Exactly. We just liked the way it looked, so we exaggerated it.
Which gives us the insane variety we have today.
Yeah.
Section 4. The diversity of the drop ear. I admit, I usually just say floppy ears, but the pros, the people in the show ring, they have specific terms, don't they?
They do, and the terminology tells you a lot about the structure. In the show ring, you will hear drop ear, which is a general term, but you'll also hear pendant ear or folded ear.
What's a pendant ear? That sounds like jewelry.
It basically is. That's your basset hound or bloodhound. The ear is long, heavy, and hangs straight down like a pendant on a necklace. There's very little lift at the base.
Okay, so that's the long-eared group. The hounds and the spaniels. The key feature is the weight, the leathery feel.
Right. And the feathering on spaniels, the silky texture, it's a whole aesthetic.
Then you have the short-eared group.
Right. Think of the terriers, like the border terrier or the fox terrier, or some of the herding breeds like the Shetland sheepdog. Their ears aren't heavy drapes. They often stand up halfway and then fold over at the tip. That's a folded ear, or sometimes a button ear.
Like a little button on a coat. That's cute.
And then you have the rose ear of the greyhound or the French bulldog. It's small, and it folds back and to the side, almost exposing the canal a little bit. It's very aerodynamic.
So it's not in the way when they're running full tilt.
Exactly. Form follows function again.
It really highlights how malleable that genetic clay is. We stretched it, shrunk it, folded it, feathered it.
But, and this is the big pivot, while we were busy sculpting these ears for look and function, we were also creating a bit of a problem. Because changing the shape changes how the dog experiences the world.
Right.
This brings us to Section 5, Mechanics of Hearing and Expression.
This is something I've always wondered. Does a dog with floppy ears hear worse than a dog with prick ears? Is my beagle at a disadvantage compared to a German Shepherd?
Worse is a tricky word. Let's be clear, they are not deaf. The ear flap is skin and cartilage. Sound waves go right through it. However, they lose a superpower that wolves and German Shepherds have.
The satellite dish effect.
Exactly. A German Shepherd has roughly 18 muscles controlling the ear, pinna, the outer ear. They can swivel that ear 180 degrees. They can lock onto a sound like a radar dish. They can independently point one ear forward and one ear back.
They can triangulate the source of a sound instantly.
Instantly. A floppy-eared dog has lost that muscular control. The flap is just too heavy to lift and pivot. So while they can hear the sound, they are much slower at pinpointing the exact location.
So if a twig snaps in the woods, the shepherd knows exactly where it is. The beagle knows something snapped, but might have to look around or use his nose to figure it out.
Correct. It changes their strategy. For a scent hound, that's not a big deal. They're built to follow their nose anyway. In fact, dampening background noise can be a benefit. But the bigger impact, I think, is on communication.
Talking to other dogs.
And
And to us.
to us. Dogs speak with their ears. Pricked ears pointing forward mean, I'm alert and interested. Pinned flat back against the head means, I'm scared or I'm being submissive. It's a huge part of their body language.
But if your ears are permanently pinned down by gravity,
It's like speaking with a mute button on, or at least speaking very quietly. A floppy-eared dog can't prick its ears forward to show curiosity.
so how do we read them? What should we be looking for?
You have to become a connoisseur of the ear base.
The base, not the flap.
Yes. Even if the flap is heavy, the muscles at the skull are still working. If a basset hound is interested in something, you'll see the ears lift slightly at the root. They'll shift forward on the head. The forehead might wrinkle.
It's subtle. You have to be paying attention.
It is very subtle. And if they are scared or appeasing, they will pull them back tight against the neck. You'll see the base of the ear pull back. But the source makes great point here. You cannot read the ears in isolation.
You have to read the whole dog.
You have to read the whole dog. The tail, the eyes, the set of the mouth, the body posture. Because the ears are essentially telling a partial story.
That is great advice for any owner. Stop looking at just the flaps. Look at the face, the body.
Exactly.
All right, Brigadiers, we have arrived at the part of the show where we have to get serious. We've talked about the cute genetics and the fascinating history. Now we have to talk about the reality of living with these ears. Section 6, health and care.
The dark cave problem.
That phrase from the source material actually gave me shivers. The dark cave. It sounds ominous.
It is an accurate description of the environment inside a floppy-eared dog's ear. Let's look at the anatomy. In a human, or a wolf, the ear canal is relatively straight and open to the air.
It's a horizontal tube.
Right. Air gets in, light gets in, moisture evaporates, it breathes.
It self-ventilates.
It self-ventilates. Now, look at a dog. Their ear canal is L-shaped. It goes vertically down the side of the head and then takes a sharp 90-degree turn toward the brain.
That already sounds like a plumbing nightmare, a built-in trap.
It is. Gravity works against you. Debris, wax, water. It all falls down that vertical shaft and gets stuck at the corner. Now, take that bad plumbing and slap a heavy, furry leather lid on top of it.
You've sealed the cave.
You have created an incubator. It is dark. It is warm, about 101 degrees Fahrenheit. It is moist from natural secretions and trapped humidity, and there is zero airflow.
Which is basically a 5-star resort for bacteria and yeast.
It is spring break for yeast and bacteria. They thrive in that environment. This is why floppy-eared dogs are exponentially more prone to otitis, which is the clinical term for ear infections, than upright-eared dogs.
So cleaning isn't just nice to do if you have a spare moment. It's mandatory maintenance.
It is a medical necessity. If you own a spaniel, a retriever, a hound, a poodle, a doodle, you are an ear custodian. That is part of the deal.
The source gives a specific routine. And I want to walk through this because I think people are scared to do it. I know I was. They don't want to hurt the dog.
Fear is the biggest barrier. But doing it wrong is worse than not doing it at all, so let's get it right. Step 1, the right supplies. You need a vet-approved liquid cleaner.
Not just water.
Never water. Water feeds yeast. You need a solution with a drying agent. And please, do not use vinegar or hydrogen peroxide.
Why not peroxide? My mom used to put that on my scraped knees.
It's cytotoxic. It destroys healthy tissue just as well as it destroys bacteria. It bubbles, which sounds like it's working, but it leaves water behind. Water is the enemy. Baby wipes are also out. They leave residue.
Got it. Vet-approved cleaner only. And the big one. The source has this in bold red letters. NEOQTPS, or cotton swabs.
Never. Throw them away. Put them in another room. I cannot stress this enough.
Why is it so dangerous?
Remember the L shape. If you stick a Q-tip down that vertical shaft, you cannot see where you are going. You are taking all the wax and debris and pushing it down like a plunger. You are packing it into that 90-degree corner right against the eardrum.
You're making a cement plug of gunk.
Exactly. And you can very easily rupture the eardrum if the dog jerks its head. Just don't do it. It's the #1 cause of iatrogenic, meaning human-caused ear injury.
Okay, so no Q-tips. What do we do instead? What's the right technique?
You use the liquid to do the work. Lift the ear, flap the lid, gently hold it up. Then you take your bottle of vet-approved cleaner and you fill the canal with the solution.
Fill it, like all the way to the top.
Don't be shy. Fill it up until it's about to overflow.
And then?
Then you massage the base of the ear. You know that cartilage bump right below the ear opening on the side of their head? You gently rub and squish that area between your thumb and forefinger.
The source mentions a sound we should be listening for.
The squishy sound. You want to hear squish, squish, squish. That is the sound of the liquid moving around in the horizontal canal, breaking up the wax and debris deep inside. Do that for 20 or 30 seconds.
And then the fun part.
Stand back, let the dog shake its head.
The spray zone. My bathroom walls know it well.
Yes, do this outside or in a bathroom with a towel handy. When the dog shakes, centrifugal force pulls the liquid and all the loosened debris out of the deep canal. It brings it up to the surface where you can actually reach it.
Nature's spin cycle.
Exactly. Once they're done shaking, you just take a cotton ball, a soft cotton ball or piece of gauze, and wipe the visible part of the ear flap and the entrance to the canal. That's it. You don't dig, you just clean up what came out.
And then a treat. A big one.
A very big treat. Make it a positive experience.
That seems manageable. How often should we be doing this?
For the average floppy-eared dog, a check and a gentle wipe weekly is good, with a full liquid clean maybe every 2 to 4 wints. If you have a swimmer or a dog with allergies, you might need to do it after every swim or more frequently.
And we need to use our noses.
Yes. Smell your dog's ears. A healthy ear smells like, well, like a dog. Maybe a little waxy or dusty. An infected ear has a very distinct odor. It smells yeasty, like old bread or a brewery. Or it can have a sharp, foul, sour smell if it's a bacterial infection.
If we smell the old cheese.
Go to the vet. Do not try to clean your way out of a raging infection. You need medication. And look for the other signs: constant head shaking, scratching at the ears, rubbing their head on the floor, or the dreaded head tilt.
The head tilt is the big red flag, right?
It is a huge red flag. If the dog is tilting its head to one side, it means the infection has likely gone past the eardrum into the middle or inner ear, and it's affecting their balance. That is an emergency. Go to the vet immediately.
Okay, that is a serious warning. Treat the cave with respect. Now, Section 7. We need to do some myth busting and talk about some ethics.
Let's start with the self-cleaning myth.
Right, we touched on this. People think nature will take care of it, that it'll all just work itself out.
Nature handles wolves with upright, self-ventilating ears. Nature does not handle cocker spaniels with heavy, sealed ears. If you leave a floppy ear alone, it will not clean itself. It will collect debris and it will fester. You are the substitute for nature's airflow.
What about the personality myth? We said earlier that floppy ears are a sign of painless genetics. So does that mean all floppy-eared dogs are nice and all pointy-eared dogs are mean?
Definitely not. That is a gross oversimplification. While the trait arose in the species due to selection for tameness, an individual dog is a product of its training, socialization, specific breed traits, and its own personality.
Right. A Rottweiler has floppy ears. I wouldn't just hop a fence to pet one without asking.
Exactly. And a German Shepherd has prick ears and can be the gentlest service dog in the world. The flop equals friend rule works on an evolutionary timescale, not necessarily on a walking down the street timescale. Don't use it to judge an individual dog.
Now the controversy. To fix or not to fix? We're talking about ear cropping.
This is a heavy topic, but we have to address it. Cropping is the practice of surgically cutting off the floppy part of the ear, the pinna, to make it stand up. You see it traditionally in breeds like Dobermans, Great Danes, and Pit Bulls.
And the source material is pretty firm on the modern consensus here.
It is. The global veterinary and scientific consensus is overwhelmingly against it. The American Veterinary Medical Association, the AVMA, opposes it for cosmetic reasons. It's illegal in most of Europe and Australia.
And the main reason is because it's cosmetic. There's no medical benefit.
It is purely cosmetic. The old arguments that it prevents ear infections have been thoroughly debunked. In fact, exposing the canal can sometimes introduce new problems with debris or sunburn. It's a painful surgery, usually done on young puppies, followed by weeks of taping and bandaging, solely to achieve a certain look.
A look that humans invented. A tough or alert look.
Right. The source does differentiate this from taping, though, which is important.
Taping is different. How so?
Yes. Taping is non-surgical. It's often done on breeds like German Shepherds or Collies where the ear is supposed to stand up, but the cartilage is a little lazy during the teething phase. You just use medical tape to create a little scaffold to give it support. It's like braces on teeth. It's not surgery. It's not amputation.
That distinction is important, but cutting the flap off for looks.
The modern world is moving away from it, and rightly so. The trend is to embrace the natural ear. If a Doberman has floppy velvet ears, Let him have his beautiful, natural, floppy velvet ears.
I'm with you. Let's pivot to something happier to close out the analysis. Section 8. Psychology and fun facts. Why are we so obsessed with these things?
Cute aggression.
I love this term. It sounds like a wrestling move, but it's actually about overwhelming love.
It is. Cute aggression is that feeling you get when you see something so adorable you just want to squeeze it or bite it.
It's so fluffy, I'm gonna die from Despicable Me. That's the perfect encapsulation.
That is the perfect example. Floppy ears are a primary trigger for what scientists call the baby schema in our brains. The round face, the soft features, the high forehead, it mimics a human infant.
So our brain gets hijacked. It sees a beagle and thinks, human baby.
Chemically hijacked, we see the floppy ear and our brain releases a flood of dopamine and oxytocin, the love hormone. It compels us to nurture, it compels us to protect. It's a very powerful, primitive response.
So the dog manipulated us into taking care of it by accidentally evolving a baby face.
And we manipulated them into having the ears in the first place. It's a co-evolutionary loop of cuteness.
We have to mention the heavy hitters of history. The record holder for the longest ears.
That would be Tigger, a bloodhound from Illinois, Guinness World Record holder.
How long are we talking?
His right ear measured 13.75 inches and his left was 13.5 inches.
That is over a foot for one ear. That's longer than a ruler.
Imagine the cleaning routine on that, or just trying to keep them out of his food bowl.
And then royalty. The source mentions King Charles II.
He is the reason we have the Cavalier King Charles Spaniel. He was so obsessed with his little toy spaniels that he issued a royal decree stating they were allowed into any public space in Great Britain, including the Houses of Parliament. A rule that supposedly still exists.
That is the level of dog obsession I aspire to. Taking your dog to Parliament.
It shows that even back then, the charm of the floppy ear was a status symbol. It wasn't just a hunting tool, it was a luxury item, a companion.
And today, we have the doodles. The labradoodles, the golden doodles, the cavapoos. The flop is everywhere.
The flop is arguably the defining trait of the entire doodle phenomenon. The hybrid vigor argument is there, but let's be honest. People want the low-shedding poodle coat, but they want the friendly golden retriever face. They want the flop.
The flop is the currency of cute.
It really is.
So, bringing it all home. Section 9, the future. Where are we going with this? Are we going to keep pushing for longer and floppier? Are we going to breed basset hounds with ears that trip them when they walk?
I hope not. And the source suggests a turning of the tide. The new focus in responsible breeding circles is functional moderation.
Functional moderation. What does that mean in practice?
It means we realized we went too far in some breeds. Extremely heavy ears cause chronic pain and infections. Extremely long ears get stepped on and injured. Breeders are using those genetic markers we talked about in Section 1 to consciously dial it back a bit.
So turning the factory dial from an 11 back down to a more reasonable 7 or 8.
Exactly. Keeping the characteristic look, but ensuring the dog can actually live a comfortable, healthy life without constant medical intervention. It's about putting the dog's welfare ahead of extreme aesthetics. That is the responsible future.
But the slap slap sound of a happy dog running down the hall isn't going anywhere.
Never. That sound is here to stay, and frankly, the world is a better place for it.
I couldn't agree more. It is a genetic accident, a mark of friendship, a cleaning nightmare, and one of the cutest things on the planet, all rolled into one floppy package.
A perfect summary.
Well, Brigadiers, I think we have successfully dissected the ear. I will never look at my dog's head the same way again. I'm going to go home and just look at his ear base.
Nor will I. Just remember to check for that squishy sound when you're cleaning.
The squishy sound. Words to live by.
Indeed.
Thanks all for listening, and do not forget that if you need any help with your dogs, visit Doggozilla magazine at doggozilla.com for all of your dog-related questions. Until next episode, woof and woof to all.